So, okay, I'd like to welcome all of you guys. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. And what we do is we start with meditation, but then afterwards I'm going to be sharing a topic from this book. We're going to be in chapter 24 today, which is titled Misunderstandings of Gotama Buddha's Teachings, because in the world you're going to see many misunderstandings about his teachings. And if you learn the misunderstandings and you actually practice those things, it won't lead to enlightenment. The Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state, and he cautioned people not to actually change his teachings, because once you change a Buddha's teachings, it doesn't lead to enlightenment any longer. So what I'm going to share with you guys are 9 of the common misunderstandings that you see in the world about his teachings. And then that way you'll understand what they are and you'll be able to practice his actual teachings, because getting to this enlightened mental state would be the very best thing that could ever happen for you, is to get to the point where your mind is completely peaceful and joyful and you don't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, or any of these other discontent feelings. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that we start this is with some chanting to ease into the meditation. The chants are actually over there on the cabinet. There's a little sheet there. You're welcome to chant along if you'd like. Just keep in mind that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like this. This is a way today to help ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself, where the Buddha used chanting as a way to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. Then after the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance. Then there'll be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class. So take whatever position is comfortable for you. As long as the body's comfortable, that's all that's needed. And then I'll get started with the chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes And start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here, you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเกวาโพตังมหะเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิ สวากขาโตมหะเกวัตตาธัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรภูริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, once again, welcome to you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. What I mentioned that I do at these sessions is I help people to understand the path to enlightenment. The individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out over 2,500 years ago how to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any discontent feelings. You won't experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind by training the mind. So getting to enlightenment is to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development, doing the cultivation of wisdom where you're training of your mind. So oftentimes people think that something like this is about rituals and ceremonies or prayer, or things of that nature, calling on some higher power and getting to some wonderful life after this life. But that's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught about how to get to a wonderful life now in this life. So if you understand his teachings and you practice them closely, you'll see that they lead exactly where he said they do, to this enlightened mental state. You can experience your mind getting closer and closer to this as you're training your mind. So if we practice what the Buddha is teaching, we'll experience more and more of that. But if we're not practicing what he taught, then you're not going to be able to experience this enlightened mental state. So in our time frame now, there's countless misunderstandings in the world. And if you adopt those misunderstandings into your life, then you're going to actually be hindered from experiencing the enlightened mental state. So what I've done in this program is all throughout the 7-month program, I've been teaching people what the teachings of the Buddha are. And now we're getting to a point where we're at the end of the book. And at the end of the book, this chapter is devoted to the misunderstandings of Gotama Buddha's teachings. So I'm going to share those with you. There's 9 individual misunderstandings, and you'll see these in different places, including here in Thailand. But before I share with you what are the misunderstandings, I'm actually going to share with you a little bit of history of where these misunderstandings come from so that you'll understand the origin of them. So when the Buddha lived in 563 BC, this is when he was born. He was born in modern-day Nepal, and he taught in northeast India. At the age of 29, he steps away from the royal family. He was a prince destined to become the king, and he trains his mind for 6 years. And at the age of 35, he gets to enlightenment. And then from the age of 35 to 80, he helps countless other people get to enlightenment during that period of time. And he dies in 483 BCE. And he taught in northeast India. And during this time frame, his teachings were very strong, very bright, very vibrant in the world. We might say that they were shining in the world. And for about 500 years after his death, they were very much shining in the world because people had lived very close to the time frame of the Buddha, and his teachings were very vibrant in the world. The people that were enlightened, they actually shared his teachings and helped other people get to enlightenment as well. But as time went on, his teachings were modified. People either changed them overtly or inadvertently changed his teachings. And he cautioned people not to change his teachings, because once you change a Buddha's teachings, they no longer lead to enlightenment anymore. But not everybody was studying his teachings to know that that's what he actually taught. So about 500 years after he dies, there's more and more kind of proliferation and branching off of what he originally taught. So in the world today, we have 3 main traditions of Buddhist teachings. It's called Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. The Theravada tradition, this word Theravada means teachings of the elders, and this is considered to be the form of teachings that's closest to what the Buddha taught during his lifetime. You'll find this in Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Sri Lanka, southern Vietnam. These are like the focal points for these, but it's really been spread all throughout the world. But even in this tradition, there's countless misunderstandings, even within this tradition. About 500 years after this particular tradition establishes, because it established during the lifetime of the Buddha, shortly after, about 500 years, we might consider that to be short, but it's a decent amount of time. There's a tradition called Mahayana Buddhism that starts to proliferate. And this is today mainly in East Asia, which is China, but it's really been spread all throughout the world. And what you're going to find in this tradition is you're going to find rituals and ceremonies and prayer and things of this nature. And then later, about 1,000 years after the death of the Buddha, there's something called Vajrayana Buddhism. This is mainly in Tibet, but it's really been spread out throughout the world and other places as well. It's not just in Tibet. And there's a lot of changes that happened here. You'll see deity worship, you'll see prayers, you'll see all kinds of rituals and ceremonies that the Buddha never taught. So even though we refer to all these things as Buddhism, I use that word very loosely because there was only one Buddha, so there could only be one Buddhism. But in reality, we have about over 200 different branches. These are the main 3 schools, but off of those, there's multiple branches. But there can only be one collection of teachings that actually lead to enlightenment, and that's what the Buddha actually taught. So that's what I do here, is I share the original words of the Buddha, helping people to understand what he actually taught. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you guys to understand the misunderstandings. And most of the misunderstandings that I'm going to share with you are from this Theravada tradition. But some of them I'll share are from these other traditions too. But most of them are from the Theravada tradition, because that's what I would suggest that you study if you're interested in getting to enlightenment. Because in the Theravada tradition, they consider the Pali Canon to be the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha, and that's what it is that you would study in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So here what we've done is we've consolidated this Pali Canon into 13 books so that way students can learn from the original words of the Buddha. And we give it away for free because for also so too long, the teachings have really been hidden. And nowadays, because of modern technology, we can make it available on our website for free where people can download it. People can go print it if they like. They can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or they can order it on Amazon. And that way you get the original words of the Buddha to see what did he actually teach. So these that I'm going to share with you guys are misunderstandings. And like I said, most of them are coming from this Theravada tradition. But in this tradition, they at least are they're studying the Pali Canon, which is helpful. But even in this tradition, there's many misunderstandings. So, for example, you might see something called the pouring water ceremony, or in Thai, we refer to this as Gotama. What this is that if you go to a temple, oftentimes people are practicing generosity, where you might give gifts to the teacher or to the ordained practitioners, because those people are sharing their teachings of the Buddha, and they sustain their life off of the food and clothing and the offerings that people make to them. But oftentimes what those people will do once they receive an offering is they will gesture for you to go get this little urn of water, and you pour out this little urn of water while they're chanting. And what they think is that whatever benefits that you developed as part of giving your gift, that you're transferring this to your dead relatives. Now, while this sounds like really nice and really interesting, it's like, oh, wow, I'd like to help mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. It's not actually possible. The reason why the Buddha taught generosity is because the thing that's causing your anger, your sadness, your frustration, and all these other feelings like stress and anxiety and everything else is the mind has what's called craving, desire, attachment. The mind's holding on. It's craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent, where in reality, you live in an impermanent world. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is train your mind how to let go, because you need to be able to let go. That's why we did that meditation where you're focused on the breath, and when the mind moves off, you cut it off, let go, and come back. It's training your mind to let go. So generosity does the same thing, because with craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll be holding on to things. So you'll be somewhat selfish. It's like my money, my clothes, my food, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my husband, my wife, mine, 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 mine. Everything's mine. But when you practice generosity, you're sharing with others. So the purpose of generosity is to enhance the quality of your mind. And you can't transfer those benefits to somebody else. It's just not possible. So there's this misunderstanding that you'll see in the world with this type of thing. And then there's something called blessed water, whereas if you go to a big event, they will tend to chant over this water, and they'll drip wax from a candle into this water. And they think that they're turning this water into something better, something blessed. And now they will sprinkle this water on everybody around. And they think that this is helping you or benefiting you in some way. There's nothing about that that's going to benefit you unless it's a hot day and you feel like you would like to have a nice little refresher. It can help you in that situation, but it's not going to turn your life into something better. Like, are you guys married or boyfriend, girlfriend? Okay. So if you guys are having challenges in your relationship, there's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to make your life better. If you're going to improve your relationship, you need to gain the wisdom of how to interact with each other in a loving and kind way. That's what's going to improve your relationship. But oftentimes people think that it's stuff like this that's going to somehow improve their relationship. So they will go to a temple and someone will sprinkle water on them, and they think that somehow that's going to make their life better. But it really doesn't. And they don't cultivate the wisdom that they need, and now their life doesn't improve. So this is going to take somebody in the wrong direction of actually improving their life and improving their mind if they thought that this is actually true. Then you also see things in Thai we call sai sin, or we might refer to this in English as a sacred thread, where you go to a temple and they'll tie this string on your wrist. This comes from the Thai tradition of animism. Prior to Buddhism coming into Thailand 800 to 1200 years ago, there's a practice of animism where they worship inanimate objects. This is why you see them wrapping trees or making offerings to the water spirit or the mountain spirit or things like this, because they think these things have a spirit, and if they honor it, then it won't, do bad things to you, right? And it's kind of interesting to think about this, but this isn't the way that the Buddha taught, and this isn't true reality. So what people do is they will wrap your wrist with this string, thinking that somehow it's going to help you, and that somehow the person themselves that's receiving that string think that it's going to help them. The thing that's really going to help you is talking with someone who understands the path to enlightenment and can help you to cultivate wisdom to improve your life through improved decision making. That's what's going to make your life better. So these things are all misunderstandings. And what I usually do is I pause at the end of each one of these and see if you guys have questions. So if you guys have questions, we have microphones here so that people online can hear you. And for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So does anybody here or online have questions about these first three? You have a question? Here, if you could use this, it'll help the people online to be able to hear you. There's a little button there. You just press it, and the lights will come on.
Geht es?
There you go. You didn't think you were going to come to Thailand and use a microphone, did you?
How can you know which are the original words of Buddha? Did he write it down, or where are this knowledge? Do you found it?
Sure. So in the Pali Canon, it's 45 volumes of books that are this thick. And this is the original teachings of the Buddha. It was written down shortly after his death because the technology to write things down didn't exist during his lifetime. But even that, you should never believe those books because you need to be able to see the truth for yourself. So the way that the teachings work in the Buddhist teachings is you learn something through investigation and examination intellectually, then you reflect on it through your own direct experience to be able to determine whether it's true or false, and then you practice it by integrating it into your day-to-day life. And that's how you'll see that it's actually working, because the condition of your mind and your life is gradually improving. And that's how you'll know that the teachings are true. So anything like this, you can do this stuff all day long and your mind is not going to get more happy. It's not going to get more peaceful. It's not going to get more joyful. You're not going to have a better relationship with your mom or your dad or your brothers or sisters. And that's how you know that these things aren't actually true. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay, so let's go to the next three. The next one is, if you interact with ordained practitioners, you might notice that when you why to them or you show respect to them, they don't show respect back to you. They don't actually why you back. And this is unfortunate, but it's their practice. You shouldn't expect or require somebody to treat you a certain way. If you're going to why somebody and show respect to them, that's for your practice. That's for you. It's not for somebody else. And you're not doing it because you want something from that person. You're doing it because you understand it's a wise thing to do, is to show respect to other people. But what the ordained practitioners have been taught is that they are above us and that household practitioners are below them. And they think of themselves as being a better person and a higher being than you. This isn't what the Buddha taught. The Buddha never taught this. The Buddha actually taught just the opposite. He taught that ordained practitioners are the lowest form of livelihood that exists in the world. Because remember, he was a prince destined to become a king. And he stepped down from that. And he went into this life of homelessness where he wore rag robes and he just slept in the house of his students. His students invited him over to sleep and he would just sleep in their house. So he considered that as a way of emptying out his ego and humbling the mind, is by living off of the donations of his students. So he taught specifically in his teachings that this was the lowest form of livelihood, of living in the ordained lifestyle. But today, 2,500 years later, people have propped those people up really, really high. And those people are being taught that they're higher than household practitioners. And they won't show respect back to you because they think that they're better than household practitioners. So just understand that that's the case. And if you actually interact with them, just be respectful, be polite, because remember, this is for your practice, that you would like to humble your mind, and you're not treating someone a certain way because you want something from them. You're treating them that way because you understand it's a wise thing to do. And if there's any ordained practitioners that are learning with me at this time, understand that what you've been taught in the past is not the truth. And as long as you allow your mind to think that you're above other people, you'll never actually get to enlightenment, because there's still ego in your mind. You need to see yourself as being equal, that everybody in the world is equal. Then there's certain chanting or mantras that sometimes people think that there's some mystical or magical power with these things. They almost think it's like a prayer or something like this. This isn't true. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a learning tool, as a learning device, that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they committed it to their memory. So nowadays we don't need chanting in order to be able to get to enlightenment. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, you had to chant in order to get to enlightenment. There was no other way to learn the teachings. Where today we use books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts. That's how we commit the teachings to our memory. But during his lifetime, it was chanting. But these chants because people don't really know 100% of what they are. I do, because I have them translated, and other people know what they mean as well. But sometimes people are chanting things, they don't even know what it means. They have no idea what the words mean. So they actually have this little mystical kind of ambiance to it, that they think there's something mystical and magical that's happening. So sometimes people will tell you, here, chant this special chant. Your boyfriend or girlfriend's going to come back to you. Maybe you don't want your boyfriend or girlfriend to come back to you. You're happy with this relationship. You don't need the old one, right? Or maybe they'll say, chant this special chant. You know, you're going to live this extra long life if you chant this special chant. Well, what I teach people is, don't believe me that these chants don't have any special power, but don't believe other people too that it does have special power, right? So if somebody tells you that this chant has a special power and it's going to help you to live this extra long life, and sometimes they'll say it's only our temple that knows this particular chant, no other temple knows it. Well, look around the temple. Do you see people 150, 200, 300 years old? If so, then there might be some truth to it, right? But if you don't see people that are 150, 200, 300 years old, then you know that this is just a belief. It's something that they're believing, but it's not true. Because with belief, you don't know which true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. So these chants and mantras, there's not anything special or mystical or magical with them. And in fact, you don't even have to chant today, and you would still be able to get to enlightenment. There's Buddhist statues that you'll find all over the Buddhist world, but none of these Buddhist statues really look like the Buddha. I've seen a couple that look like him, but the ones that have the headpiece and the elaborate clothing, he never wore that kind of stuff. He actually looked like this during his lifetime. He wore rag robes and he shaved his hair. He didn't wear those really fancy, elaborate clothing. But the people that made statues of him, they didn't start making statues of him until 500 years after his death. And he never told anyone to make statues of him, but those people who made statues of him, they never lived during his lifetime, so they didn't understand what he looked like. The artist that did this actually looked at the description of him inside the original teachings, and that's how this artwork got created, based on the original teachings. But the people who first started making statues never did that, so that's why we've got these statues that don't even look like the Buddha. Sometimes people will treat these statues as if it's the Buddha physically sitting there. You will see people feeding the statue, they will bathe the statue, they will bow down to the statue thinking that the Buddha is sitting there. They might leave a cup of water at the temple. They'll come back 6 hours later and they'll see that the water has gone down, and they're like, oh, the Buddha drank the water, where in reality it just evaporated, right? So you had all these different beliefs of things where people are thinking this way. And as long as you know the truth, that's what's important. You know, we're not judging other people. We're not looking down on them for what they think. But as long as you know what is true and what is false, you don't need a Buddha statue in order to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. When I look at Buddha statues, I think, wow, what a beautiful artwork. Wow, they put a lot of effort into this. They're really dedicated, right? That's the way I look at Buddha statues. But don't feel like you have to run out and get a Buddha statue in order to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. So do you guys have any questions here on any of these? Yeah, go for it. I think it might still be on. Yeah, it's still on. It's on. Yeah.
It's that people built oder statue from him.
Say again. Okay. It's already on. Yeah. Okay, so your mic's turned off. The question is, did the Buddha want people to buy statues? Is that what you're asking? No. He never taught people to create statues of him. It's not something he ever taught, because people get attached to these statues and they hold on to them. And then when it breaks or it gets stolen or something like this, they are so upset, right? So you don't need a statue in order to be able to get to enlightenment. This is just what people are choosing to do today. And it's wonderful that they honor and respect the Buddha so much. I actually used to own tons of Buddha statues, but I got rid of all of them because you don't need a Buddha statue. You can train your mind without those things. Do you have another question?
For in our flight from Bangkok, we had a monk, and he was the first person that he is going in the plane,
Yeah.
and he's sitting in the first seat.
First class.
Yeah. Is this normal, or is this because the monk wants to be special?
The Thai people treat their monks very well. They prop them up very high. They think of them as very high in society, which is great that they honor people who are ordained. It's great that they think that way. But the problem is that the ordained practitioners oftentimes are allowing that to produce conceit in their mind. And this is why this is a problematic thing for them. It's not a problem for you. If they have conceit, they have conceit. No big deal. That's on them. That's affecting them. But you will see that Thai people treat the ordained practitioners very, 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 very well. But also because of this, it breeds a lot of complacency that the Buddha taught to support ordained practitioners who were practicing the teachings well. And if you practice the teachings well, he encouraged people to support those ordained practitioners, because then the people who aren't practicing the teachings well, they're either going to leave and no longer be a monk, or they're going to step up their practice and practice the teachings really well. And then we have a really strong, vibrant group of people who are practicing the teachings well and sharing that with other people. But because the Thai people don't really do it that way, they just treat all the monks really, really well. You've got a lot of complacency, and you get people who think that, they should sit in first class and they should board the plane first and all this other kind of stuff. For me, I'm very comfortable with everybody just treating me as a normal, average, everyday person. That's the way I prefer to be treated. When people start treating me special, because I've been in places like that where a certain restaurant will treat me special or other things like this, I usually don't go back to the restaurant anymore, because I prefer to just be treated as a regular, average person, because that's what's always best. Because when we're spending time together, you can see that I'm just a regular average person just like you. And maybe I've trained my mind and you haven't, but that doesn't make us better or worse than each other. We're equal, but now you're with somebody that can teach you how to train your mind, but we're equal. We're the same type of individual, same human being. It's just that one person might play soccer or football better than another person, but that doesn't make them better. Or one person might be better at singing than another person, but that doesn't make them a better individual. It just means that we've got different training. And it's the same thing here, that as ordained practitioners or a household practitioner who's trained their mind, we should look at it as we just have different training. And, just like one person can sing and another person can maybe play football better, we're all the same type of person. We're all equal. Okay. So now the next three is, some people think of the Buddha as a god or as a Lord. You might hear people talk about him this way. They might call him Lord Buddha. I don't recommend that people do this for a couple of reasons. The first thing is that if we use the word Lord, if you look this up, this is what it means: someone or something having power, authority, or influence, a master or ruler, acting in a superior or domineering manner towards a certain someone. Well, the Buddha never did these kinds of things. He thought of himself as being equal to everybody else. So if we use the word Lord associated with the Buddha, we're assigning all these qualities to the Buddha when he actually never practiced any of these kinds of things. Another reason why, in my opinion, it's unwise to think of him as a Lord is that there's some people in the world that think about Jesus Christ as the only Lord and Savior. And if we go around talking about the Buddha as a Lord, they've been taught to never honor or never learn from any other Lord. So now these teachings that could be really beneficial for the entire world, those people, billions of people who think about Jesus Christ as the only Lord and Savior, they would ignore the teachings of the Buddha, and they wouldn't get the help that they need in order to be able to experience this better way of life that the Buddha taught. And then the third reason why I don't think it's wise to talk about the Buddha as a god or a Lord is that if you come into the world through the womb of a woman, you are a human being, right? A god doesn't come through into the world through the womb of a woman. So the Buddha was asked during his lifetime, what are you? Are you a heavenly being? And he said, no, I am not. They said, what are you, a god? He said, no, I am not. They asked him all these different questions. And then finally he said, remember me as awake. I am a Buddha. Remember me as a Buddha, essentially, is what he said, right? So he didn't refer to himself as a Lord. He didn't refer to himself as a God or a Savior or a Messiah or any of these other things. So it would be unwise for us to assign those things to him if he didn't even refer to himself that way. It can get very confusing for people. So I don't suggest people use the thinking of the Buddha as a God, an avatar, or a Lord. Sometimes you'll hear people talk about blessings. They will say, oh, may the triple gem bless you, or may the Buddha bless you. I think this is a merging of Christianity and Buddhism together, that people are doing that. But the Buddha never taught about these kinds of things. What a blessing is God's favor and protection. It's a prayer asking for God's favor or protection. So that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are about. It's about doing this inner work and training your mind. It's not about having God protect you, because in fact, it's your own decisions that lead to any particular result that you're experiencing. It's not God that's controlling that we experience good things or bad things. It's our own decisions that are leading to those types of things. So there's no blessings in the teachings of the Buddha, but you'll hear people talk about that and say those kinds of things. And it can be very misleading if you're not understanding. And then lastly, you'll hear some people refer to this as saying everybody is a Buddha. They'll say, you're a Buddha, you're a Buddha, you're a Buddha, everybody's a Buddha, or everybody has Buddhahood, or you can attain Buddhahood, or everybody has Buddha nature. The Buddha never taught this, but you'll hear people today that will say that because they don't understand what a Buddha is. A Buddha meets three primary criteria: is they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. And the third criteria is that they preserve their teachings in such a way that after their death, countless more people get to enlightenment. Those are the three main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. So that's a very rare type of individual in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. But today, you'll hear people say that everybody is a Buddha. You can get to enlightenment, but you won't be a Buddha at that point. And here's the words of the Buddha where he's explaining this. So you can see it in his original words based in the Pali Canon. So he has this teaching called the rare appearance of five treasures. And he's talking to this student. And he says, the appearance of five treasures is rare in the world. What five? The appearance of a Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, is rare in the world. So a Tathagata is a Buddha. This is someone who's discovered the truth, who shares the truth. A perfectly enlightened one is a Buddha. So if it's rare that a Buddha is in the world, then how could everybody be a Buddha? This is just a misunderstanding that people don't understand what a Buddha is. So I'm not going to go through all the rest of these, but this is a teaching from the Buddha where you can see that he's talking about how rare it is that a Buddha exists in the world. So do you guys have questions on any of these? No questions? Okay, let me see here online. Okay, I don't see any questions online either. Okay, so just a short little class today, just to kind of teach you guys these 9 misunderstandings. Thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more in depth, I have various courses and classes. In fact, next week, I'm going to be teaching a course. It's called Harmony in Relationships. It's Monday through Friday from 9 to 3 each day. And I'm going to be teaching how to build harmony in your relationships, because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, you'll have disharmony. I'm sure as a couple, you guys probably argue sometimes. You're probably upset with each other. You can get to the point where your mind's enlightened and you guys don't argue with each other. You're completely peaceful and joyful. But you can't do that in the unenlightened state. You're going to experience arguments and hostility and bitterness between the two of you from some time. So this is the way every unenlightened being is experiencing life. But by training your mind, you can get to a point where all your relationships are harmonious. So I'm going to be teaching that next week from Monday through Friday from 9 to 3. So if you'd like to see more details, you can check our website. You can check the bulletin board. You can talk with me and I'll help you get plugged in to what you need, because we have various programs that will help you to be able to gradually learn and train your mind. So whatever you guys do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation